You are listening to the Marc Guzman podcast experience.
Okay, so next topic is tips for building and maintaining business relationships in real estate. So, Brian, you've been in business now how many years?
28 years, and this is my going into my 29th year now.
Okay. What's been the probably the number one key uh key advice or tool that you use to build and keep relationships?
Well, there's a lot of different perspectives when you ask this particular question. Like, how do you build long-term relationships if you're an investor, right? And you're dealing with a lot of agents, or if you're an agent dealing with investors, or if you're an agent dealing with first-time buyers. So part of that, to answer that question, I'm going to have to focus in on one at a time. But with the idea of building long-term relationships, just from a realtor perspective, again, from my perspective, it's always been giving good advice and free advice that will always ultimately help the client. So, for example, most of the time when client comes to me, and again, I'm kind of going to speak from example because I have clients that I literally work with for the last 15 years, and I've seen their kids like when they were babies, and now they're like 19, 20 years old, graduating from college. And my primary relationship with them has always been selling and helping them sell and buy investment real estate, which always segues into maybe a primary residence, or helping them to build their assets, like sell them a fourplex and then resell that fourplex a year or two later, trade it into an eightplex, sell that eightplex a year or two later, 3 years later, trade it into a 12plex. So when you're building that long-term relationship with anybody, a lot of it is being able to look at deals objectively. So there's times where I'm going to tell my client, don't buy that property. We did the inspections, or we looked at the rent rolls, or we discovered there was something wrong, it's going to stop us from what your original plan was with the property, be it rent control or be it the house is falling in. So if you're in a position where you can tell someone not to do something, even though it's going to cost you your commission, then that's always been a real cool tool for me to just maintain that relationship, because they realize that I'm a straight shooter and I'm very honest. I'm not going to do something just so I can make a quick buck.
Yeah, I think people nowadays can definitely see through the typical salesman tactic, right?
Right.
Where they know you're going to make money off of it, but when they kind of feel something off and you're just pushing them to make a sale happen, they see right through that these days.
Yeah.
I think. For me, I think it's been really about being as knowledgeable as you can about what you do. Just being it's kind of cliche, but being the expert. But a lot of people say that, throw it around, but I'm talking about really being the expert. Like, one thing I did when I first got into selling real estate is I had no clue about the contracts, disclosures, yet I had a license, right?
Well, every one of us comes into the business with a license with no clue.
So what I did was I did something that probably 99% of agents do not do. I sat down and I read word by word the entire purchase contract and every required disclosure. Then I highlighted things I did not understand, and I went to an attorney friend and had them break it down for me. And so basically, I then understood the contract as much as possible, better than most real estate agents. And at that point, I was able to guide my clients and actually advise them on, well, if you need a bit more time, here's what we can do. Basically, finding little loopholes or using it as negotiation tactics to get your client the best price possible. So, and that's kind of been something that has transitioned with me into property management. And what I do today is that I will talk to someone and overwhelm them with so much information about their property to the point where sometimes they don't want to do business with me because they're like, this is too much information, and they realize, hey, I'm going to do it by the book. And sometimes they may not want to, and that's fine. They can go manage their own property or hire someone else that won't. But just overwhelming people with information does two things. Either, you end up finding people that really want to work with you because you're the expert and you prove it, and you really build a lot of trust because they now know how knowledgeable you are.
So just segueing off of what you're saying, and I said earlier, giving them good advice. good advice will be different for each person. And so you have to tailor that advice to your audience. So one of the things to keep those long-term relationships is, for example, if you're dealing with an investor, what are tax laws that will benefit them specific to real estate? Who are accountants who understand real estate investors and where can you turn to? Because there's going to be a plethora of questions. And so providing that type of good advice and telling them how to get from point A to point B through leverage and understanding what actual cap rates, ROIs, IRRs are, and what that means to them. Because a lot of times you could just read off definitions to people, not put them in perspective as to what that means to them. Or something as simple as buying a home. Here's tax laws for owner occupancy that'll benefit you, and here's how you can use that to leverage into something 2 years from now, 3 years from now that'll better yourself. A lot of people don't realize the nest egg that they're sitting on just with their single family home. And so when you put that into perspective for them, they know that, hey, 2 years later, 3 years later, they're going to call you back up. I don't send out birthday cards or Christmas cards. I literally say, here's what our goal is now, here's where we want to be, and we're going to check in every 3 to 6 months to say that you're on track. And that's always kept them coming back, and you build that long-term relationship.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you to our producer, Sam Lubman. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share the podcast. Remember, you can listen to the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Google Play, SoundCloud, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. For more information on my business as a property manager and real estate team, go visit my website at markguzman.com. I really want to thank all of you for listening. It means the world to me, and I hope today's episode provides you value in your day-to-day life. I created this podcast to help showcase the many great people that live in this world and help share some knowledge that I've learned along the way in life. Again, thank you for listening. Check out our sponsors, and I'll catch you on the next episode.